Good evening and welcome back to the locker room on this Tuesday night as we look back at Dinamo Zagreb 0, Celtic 0 in the Champions League, a result that now leaves Celtic in 19th place but only 3 points off the top 8. Delighted as always to be joined by my good friend and sidekick Regan Stevenson. Regan, how's it going?
Doing well, Graham, doing well.
So as I say, it did finish 0-0 in Zagreb in what was not the best of games. Before we get into moments in the game, which there's not a lot of, Regan, what was your overall thoughts on that game and the Celtic performance?
My overall thoughts, Graham, is the progress that the side's made in terms of Celtic going away in Europe and doing very well, getting a point. Adamina probably could have won it from great defending from the defender in the second half, about the 65th minute, and then he had another great chance where a great ball in and another good piece of defending. So I think I've seen a lot of negativity on my ex, as Graham, as Michael would say.
You love that, like.
It's not my ex if Michael's listening. My ex she's not listening, and we'll hope she's not listening. Anyway, and people are being negative in terms of saying Celtic should have been more progressive going forward, and I can get that, Graham. But you need to remember as well to get a point in Europe. Celtic now in 9 points. If they beat the young boys of Bern of Switzerland, they go on to 12 points. If you'd ask any Scottish football, any Celtic supporter before the campaign started, going into the last match, you'll be on 12 points, possibly into the top 4 of the table. You would have said absolutely fantastic. And the point for Brendan Rodgers that this year, if he makes it through to the playoffs, is there's been progression. And he's also shown the Celtic supporters, but he's also shown the Scottish media and the Scottish supporters as well, Graham, that Brendan Rodgers football is able to do well in European football. So I think there's a lot of positives to take tonight.
To be fair, when we did the preview show earlier on tonight, you did say it would be a draw. You said 1-1, but you got the draw right. I said that I didn't think Celtic would leave Zagreb with nothing. I did say they keep a clean sheet. I got the score wrong. But I mean, like you said, a point away from home's not a bad result. And that's now the last 2 away games in Europe. They've kept 2 clean sheets. And to be honest, if you look at the game overall, we will get into moments in the game in a minute, but if you look at the game overall, it's not like Kasper Schmeichel's been overly tested. He had 1 save in the second half that was pretty straightforward. But other than that, he's not really had much to do.
I agree, I want to make a point to Celtic supporters that are listening, Graham, because I do my research for these locker room shows, and I bet people don't think that. But I mean, Brendan Rodgers becomes the first manager from since David Hay to win to stay unbeaten for 4 matches in a European competition. So that's a big milestone as well, Graham. The fact that you said there that Celtic get 2 back-to-back clean sheets away in the Champions League, that can only be seen as a positive. And you've got to say, I mean, look at Atalanta tonight. They probably should have won the game against Real Madrid. And I don't know if you've seen it, Graham, but Retegui has a great chance at the back post to make it 3-3 in the last minute, and he fluffs his lines. So you've got to say, for Celtic to keep a team like Atalanta at bay, and also to keep a team like RB Leipzig. RB Leipzig have also just got beaten by Aston Villa, but they scored 2 goals tonight. And another thing as well, that Club Brugge have won against Sporting Lisbon as well. So these are all teams that we thought Celtic could beat, but these teams are proven as well, Graham, that they're very good teams to play against.
I think you've got to put in as well perspective. If you look back at the game that Celtic lost 7 against Dortmund, you just said there that obviously Celtic have now definitely made a lot of progression. 2 clean sheets in the last 2 games. They're now sitting on 9 points, so a very good chance to go through. You know, I think Brendan Rodgers, like I said in the preview show, he is learning lessons after that Dortmund game. He's not been quite as gung-ho. Because we did the show after Dortmund game, and I said at the time I thought Celtic were very, very open. They were very easy to play against. They're not now. They're a lot more difficult.
I think that's true, Graham. And I think in terms of Brendan Rodgers, I think he's developed as a manager. I think as much as Celtic fans would want to admit it, I think him going down to Leicester has actually improved him as a manager. He's been down there and he's become more shrewd. It's maybe opened his eyes more, and he's came back to Celtic a more rounded, level-headed manager, and he's been better for that experience. So, as much as Brendan Rodgers going away at the time, it's actually now benefiting Celtic in the long run. So, I think overall, Graham, I think there can only be positives to take as well, because you need to remember that these. Like Dinamo Zagreb, I know you said that they've not won in a few games, and I've heard people saying they're going through a bit of an injury crisis, but they're still a top level team.
Yeah, I mean, going into this game, I said it in the previous show as well. I put in the chat that they hadn't won at home since the 28th of September, and they were actually as well. They'd only scored one goal in the last 4 games going into today. They went on a great run. It was going to be a difficult game for Celtic. The atmosphere was quite flat at times, especially first half. But before we get into the game, I have to also give special mention to Callum McGregor, Reagan, because tonight was his 100th European game for McGregor. He's now the 4th most for a Scottish player. So Alan McGregor is on 109, James Forrest 116, and Scott Brown 127. It's an illustrious group of players that Callum McGregor joins, and what a 70's been.
Yeah, Graham, it is, and I think Callum McGregor has proved as well that he can compete at that level. And like you said, it's not a case of McGregor's won a raffle to get there. He's worked really hard, and he's proven over the years. And also, Brendan Rodgers has also wanted to get this guy down to Leicester. So Callum McGregor's a guy that's really benefiting from Brendan Rodgers being back at the club. And I don't know if you agree, Graham, but I think actually, as much as I don't like it and I didn't want it to happen, I think him retiring from Scotland has brought in his game a lot more. He's a top goal scorer in Scottish football at the moment as well.
Yeah, I did say that at the time. As much as I didn't want him to retire because he's such a really good footballer, it definitely has benefited Celtic, and you can see that in his performances. He just looks a lot, he's a lot fresher, he's a lot fitter, and definitely not playing for Scotland now, I do think helps that.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think McGregor as well. He's got that bit about him that he can score now as well, and that's not something that he was able to do for a long, long time. And now he's adding that to his game, so it can only benefit Celtic.
So, as I always do for shows like this, when Celtic are playing in the Champions League or Hearts or Rangers are playing as well, which we'll obviously do on Thursday, I always take notes about things during the game, so I've got stuff to talk about. And I'm going to be honest, I was quite worried after the first half because I had written very little down because nothing really happened. It was very scrappy. So I thought Celtic started the game okay, passed the ball quite well. There was a booking in the 7th minute for Greg Taylor for a challenge on Ristovski. But after that, there wasn't really much happened. Celtic were very comfortable in possession. But for me, Reagan, even though it was a Champions League night, and it was actually mentioned during commentary, it was almost like both teams were kind of trying to suss each other out, and there wasn't really a lot in the way of chances in that first half.
Yeah, it was like a boxing match where they were just kind of feeling each other out, Graham, and try to work out the strengths and weaknesses. And I think if you're Celtic, you're kind of happy with that because I don't know if you agree, but I thought the atmosphere for a European night was quite bad as well.
Yeah.
And I think I think Joe Hart alluded to on the commentary that I think that kind of played a part in the game as well. But I think the pleasing aspect for me in the first half was how able Celtic were to be able to control the tempo and control the ball, because that's not something you usually see with a Scottish team, Graham. The fact that they control the ball, usually the Scottish team kind of set up with a bank of 4 and try and defend and make sure that they do things on the break. But Celtic seem to really have a control about them.
Yeah, it struck me in that first half as well, because normally I kind of think you would expect the home team in most matches, whether it's Europe or even domestically, to be dominating the ball, get on the ball, and obviously dictate the play. But in that first half, Zagreb looked quite happy to let Celtic have the ball. I thought Zagreb offered virtually nothing first half. They seemed to be quite happy to let Celtic have the ball. And Celtic, they dominated possession. But like I say, we spoke during the preview show, and I said about the Celtic front three, Kuhn, Maeda, and Kyogo, but they never really got involved in the game. They didn't really get any chances at all.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me, Graham, was I thought Nicholas was good on the break in terms of sometimes that he was like running by the defender, and you can see the defender was like not looking forward to that matchup. But I think in terms of Maeda, the big worry for me was, Graham, I don't know if you noticed, but he got booked in the first 30 odd minutes, and I'm thinking if he makes one more draft challenge like he did in the first half, then that could be Celtic's plan put to bed, because Celtic were right in this match, so that this wasn't a game that you sort of wanted them to go to waste.
Good evening to Michael Bannerman, who says, "Hey fellas, hope you're both well. We're doing very well, Michael. Hope you're well too, pal." Yeah, I actually had written Maeda was booked because that was one of the few things that actually happened in that first half. 29 minutes, Kuhn does get in behind. He tries to play the ball across the box, but the keeper blocks it. And then kind of on the stroke of half time, there was a couple of chances actually for both teams. So 45 minutes, Kulinovic had a chance at the front post that he put well wide after a good play down the right. Celtic then responded. This was a big moment, I think, for Celtic, Regan, in the just into the first half, because there's a chance, and it was mentioned as well during commentary by Joe Hart and Rory as well, my good mate Rory. Had to get that in there, a plug. But yeah, I mean, there was a chance for Hatate. Maybe could have taken the shot, but he tries to play in Kuhn, but he overhits it. That was a big chance for Celtic, because Hatate, normally in that position, you're thinking he's going to take the shot, but he didn't do it.
Yeah, Graham, he's got to take the shot right away. He's got to do it, because I think as well that he's so close to half time, so there's nothing to lose. And if I don't know about you, Graham, but I kind of felt if Celtic got that first goal, like, no disrespect to Zagreb, I thought they were a good team, and fair play to them for getting there. But I felt like if Celtic got the first goal, that would kind of open the floodgates for them.
There was one other chance during the first half that I didn't write down, but I did remember it. It was a free kick for Bernardo, but again, didn't manage to take the chances. And
yeah,
I kind of felt
that was pretty close. That was pretty close. I remember that as well, but I was kind of expecting him to go under the ball, but he went over it, and I think Joe Hart can alluded to on commentary that he tries to do the harder thing, to go up over the ball rather than under the ball.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the bookings there, and it's a good point actually, mate, because obviously I mentioned it earlier. Greg Taylor's booked after 7 minutes. Now, it's a long time to go on a booking, but for the rest of the game, I thought he was quite comfortable. There's always that worry, especially when you're a defender. There's always that worry that, you said there about Maeda, one daft challenge and you're off. But after his booking, to be fair, Greg Taylor was fine. He was decent.
Yeah, I think he was good, and I think that's the reason why Brendan Rodgers likes him, because he's got real tactical discipline, Graham, and he's got a kind of see that pass that he played for Rio in the Aberdeen game last week. That's what he's got in his locker as well. So I think that's a big reason why Brendan Rodgers is trying to get him down in a new deal, because what Greg Taylor's got is good. I know people talk about that he's Scottish, and I think sometimes that can go against him. But Greg Taylor's shown it as well that he can play at this level and he can really compete. So I don't think I had any kind of worry that Greg Taylor would get booked. It was more Dyson Maeda for me.
Do you think at times Greg Taylor kind of goes a little bit underappreciated? Because he does do a good job. I know he's obviously played for Scotland as well, but there's still sometimes you think, Greg Taylor still playing for Celtic. Is he good enough? Do you think he's a little bit underappreciated by some Celtic fans?
I think if he was called Greg Taylor Valdo, a lot of people would appreciate him more, Graham. I think it's because he's Scottish. He's from Greenock. If he was from Madrid and he had a big a big haircut, then I don't think people would be saying much. I think it's just because we've got this kind of stereotype, kind of, he's Scottish, he's hard working, but I think that's all you can ask. I remember a great Celtic right back and Mikael Lustig. Now, Mikael Lustig was never going to make it to the top levels of the game, but what you got from Mikael Lustig, Graham, was a top player that you could rely on every game, and I think that's what Greg Taylor offers you.
Well, someone else that I think is quite reliable, and actually Michael mentions me here, due to UEFA registration rules, Taylor, Ralston should get a decent amount of time. Well, there was a change at halftime. Anthony Ralston came on for Alistair Johnston, who had taken a knock in the first half and obviously couldn't carry on. Again, I thought for the second half, I thought Ralston was pretty decent. And again, I think he's someone that goes under the radar a little bit. You know, he always comes in, he does a really good job for Celtic. He's actually last week for Scotland, he's been quite decent. Again, do you think Ralston gets a little bit of unfair criticism at times?
I mean, there was one ball in the second half where if he plays the ball in the right place, there's a big chance for Kyogo and Engels to score.
There was a big moment on 49 minutes. Kuhn, I think it was actually Ralston that plays the pass to him. Kuhn cuts inside and his shot is blocked. And it was again mentioned during commentary, when he opens up that foot to have that shot, Reagan, are you thinking goal?
Yeah, I'm thinking that he scored. But that little deflection, a good play with the Zagreb defender takes it away. But yeah, I think Celtic are now showing that they've got a really good backbone in Europe and they're not as easy to play against. And that's credit to Brendan Rodgers. And it's like I said to someone else the other day, but what is people expecting? I mean, look, you said that about Tony Ralston. I mean, Tony Ralston's a great debut to Alistair Johnson because no disrespect to Celtic or Rangers or Hearts or whatever, but you're never going to get two outstanding right backs and to play for a Scottish team. So I think Ralston's a able deputy to Alistair Johnson. I think he's done a great job so far, and I think he's somebody that Brendan Rodgers trusts in his game plan that he can throw in. And I'm not saying that Ralston's going to be the saviour, Graham, but he's somebody that you can trust, that you can rely upon. That he can try his best and he can work very hard. And you've got to say his final ball as well. Sometimes is really good.
What I will say about Ralston, use that word trust there. And I think for me, it's always a sign when managers always play them. So you've got Brendan Rodgers, obviously plays and trusts him. You've got Ange Postecoglou, played him and trusted him. You've got Steve Clark, played him and trusted him. If he wasn't trusted to do a job, these managers would not play him. But he plays because he's clearly a really good player.
Yeah, Graham, he's a kind of steady Eddie player. And what he offers you is really, he's got really good tactical awareness in terms of he knows where to be. He knows how to defend properly. He's a defender, and that's something that's lacking in the modern game. If you look at Rangers right back, for example, Rangers right back likes to go forward, but Ralston's that kind of old-fashioned kind of. He likes to put in a tackle as well.
Well, Ralston was booked in 55 minutes for a foul in the middle of the park, and it was called the professional foul at the time, which was right because they were breaking Zagreb, but it was a decent foul to give away. Then a minute later, Piazza had an effort for Zagreb blocked, and it was a good block from Trusty, actually. And then about a few minutes later, Batina had a shot just over the bar, but again, nothing really to trouble Celtic. And then 64 minutes, there was a double change for Celtic. Rio Hatate came off for Luke McKeown, and Engels came on for Bernardo. What did you make of Hatate and Bernardo's performance tonight, Reagan? Reagan, are you there?
Sorry, Graham. I think they could have offered more in the first half, but I think overall they kind of held the ball well. But it's just a case of trying to do more in the final third. But like you said, but Bernardo had a good chance with the free kick. He played some nice passes as well. And in terms of Rio Hatai, Rio is one of these ones where a game can really drift them by, but it can also offer you a moment of quality. So I think the two of them did okay, Graham. I wouldn't say they were outstanding, but I would say they were okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bernardo does bring that kind of physicality. He mopped up a few times for Celtic. You know what Hatate is going to, you know what Hatate can offer. He's a really, really good footballer, really composing the ball. He can pick a pass. But tonight, it just maybe wasn't quite his game. You know, he just didn't really get involved in the game enough. It was no surprise to see him coming off. Luke McCowan and Engels coming on. How do you feel that both McCowan and Engels did for the team that they were on?
Yeah, I'm really happy for Luke in particular. I think he did really well when he came on. You probably get onto it, but Celtic the last chance of the game. But Engels, I just knew for a fact that he wasn't going to deliver a good ball in. It was too easy for the keeper, and he's that kind of player that kind of flatters to deceive. Graham, I'm I'm still on the fence with Engels at the moment. He scores a good goal against Hibs, but he's kind of one of these players that's still developing. The only good example I can use right now is Nicholas a year ago when he came in from Rapid Vienna. He kind of, I remember on a radio station, a journalist was on there and he says from Austria that Nicholas is not a good player and I don't know what Celtic are doing. So I think it just shows you that players need time to adapt. I think he will become a decent player, but I just don't know right now if he's offering what Brendan Rodgers wants. But hopefully, over time, he can really understand what the manager wants, and then he can improve.
Well, I think it's a fair point you make about time because if you look at Nicholas Kuhn's stats in all competitions, he's got 11 goals and 11 assists to his name. So maybe tonight was a quieter night, but all you've got to do is look at Kuhn's stats to say, actually, the guy's clearly a really good player. And of course, Engels can perform. But like I said on the previous show, £11 million a lot of money. And he is young. He will get better. But, I thought he came on tonight and, he did fine. He got on the ball, tried to make things happen. But I've said previously, I'm a big fan of Luke McCowan. I was a fan of him at Dundee. I think he's a really good signing for Celtic. Gives us something a little bit different. And I think Luke McCowan probably deserves to start more, but the issue is that Celtic midfield is so strong, he's just got to bide his time.
Yeah, he's got to bide his time, but what he's doing so far, look, is very impressive, and he's shown that there's real value to be had in the Scottish market, Graham. That there's also a player in there that Brendan Rodgers sees he can develop. So this needs to be a route that Celtic go down. I said to you that on Friday that I feel that Celtic will go down and they will try and buy Lennon from Motherwell, and I still believe that they will try and offer maybe 6 million to Motherwell and see if they can meet somewhere in the middle. But I think Scottish clubs need to try and adopt more Scottish players because you look at even Hearts with Penrice. Penrice is something that's done really well. I know he's not done too well this season, but look at Shankland from Dundee United. Look at Barry Mackay. All of these players have done well at Scottish clubs, and then they've came to bigger clubs and they've done really well. And that's what we need to see more often because I know people might say, well, it's better for them to go down to England because it's a better standard down in the Premier League. But it's always good to see Scottish clubs exchanging players because then the transaction stays in Scotland and it's more money for the Scottish clubs.
I mean, if Lennon Miller goes to Celtic, how do they get in that Celtic team? Because, like I said, the midfield is very strong. You've got Luke McCowan on the bench. You've got Yang on the bench. You've got real quality on that bench. How does Lennon Miller actually get into that Celtic team?
Well, Graham, I would say to you that I genuinely believe that Rio Hatai and Engels will possibly leave in the summer. That's my genuine belief. I think that Rio Hatai, how many years has he been here now, Graham? 3, 4 years?
I think it's about 3, yeah.
That's usually a time where Celtic kind of weigh up. Celtic usually, as a club, Graham, usually like to try and move on one or two sellable assets. And I believe that if Engels has a really good end to the season, and also Rio as well, because I'm not trying to sell these players, Graham, but what I'm saying is, I don't know if you agree, but this is something that Scottish clubs don't do too well. They don't sell at peak value. And I, no, I don't know if you agree, Graham, but I do think that now that Celtic have got that kind of breathing ground where they know that they've done transactions with clubs like Brighton, Southampton before. They know that these clubs are interested in their players. So I think a club like Brighton would suit Rio today.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think he would do well. Like I said, I think he's a really good footballer. I do enjoy watching him. Like I said, tonight maybe wasn't one of his better games, but he went about his job and did it quite effectively. But yeah, I mean, I think if Hatate does go, wherever he goes, he'll be a really good player because there's quality there. You can see it. But in terms of Celtic, there was a chance for 68 minutes. Luke McKibben had a strike that was easily held by the goalkeeper from outside the box. And then another two changes for Celtic on 71 minutes. Adam Ida came on for Kyogo and James Forrest came on for Maeda. Now, we talk about quiet nights for the likes of Kuhn and we talk about quiet nights for the likes of Hatate. It was a very quiet night for Kyogo and Maeda. They never really got involved in the game at all.
Yeah, Graham, and I'm not here to pick on players, but I did say before the game again that see these European games where you're kind of under the cosh and it's all about hustle and bustle. These are the kind of games that Kyogo goes a bit missing in. Don't know if you agree, but I thought he was a bit of a passenger again tonight.
I mean, I speak about it all the time, and it was actually mentioned on the radio when I switched on at half time, and they were talking about Kyogo. And Pat Bonner said he was watching Kyogo's movement because his movement is fantastic. But tonight, he didn't really get any chances to go in behind. I thought Zagreb, although they didn't offer a lot going forward, they defended him very well, and they defended Maeda as well. I thought the laddie, Catherine at right back, I thought he was very good against Maeda because we know what Maeda's like. I thought he defended him very well tonight.
Yeah, Graham, and I think I mean, teams these days have got video analysis and scouting and stuff, so they'll know the danger of Maeda and also know the danger of Kyogo. So they've been probably well versed in how these two play. So I think you've got to credit the opposition and how well they defended against these two. But I think for me, Graham, in the young boys game, I would go for Adamida because he just seems to offer more of a threat in these European games. But then you could probably caveat that and say that on the stats of the Champions League, young boys are at the moment the worst team in the Champions League. So you could probably say Kyogo might have a chance to go in behind them.
Thought the last 20 minutes of the game opened up a little bit, but it didn't really feel that either team was really looking to try and win the game. I mean, there was a couple of chances. There was a chance for 79 minutes, probably the best chance of the game actually for Zagreb. Again, really good ball in from the right-hand side. It's a really decent header from Piazza, but it's a save tipped over the bar by Kasper Schmeichel. Apart from that, didn't have a lot to do. And then there was a chance on not that long after from Celtic, and actually it's probably the biggest chance of the game in the very last few minutes. And this is the one I think they talked about on the TV as well. Really good play by Forrest, plays it into Engels in the box. Engels pulls it back. It looks like Ida's going to have a tap in, but that man, Catherine, that I mentioned there, is a brilliant, brilliant block to stop the ball going to Ida. And at that point, Reagan, you are thinking when Engels in the box and pulls that back, you are thinking, this is a goal. It's brilliant defender.
Yeah, it's unbelievable because I think if that goes through to Ida, then it's Celtic that are absolutely take the 3 points in Zagreb because I think if Celtic scored, then there'd be no way back for Zagreb because as much as I feel like they offered a threat, I feel like Joe Hart was spot on with the analysis in terms of I felt in the end, Graham, Zagreb were kind of settled for the draw, which was kind of weird for me because if you look at Zagreb now, two fixtures, they play Arsenal and AC Milan. So they would have seen Scottish opposition is a kind of is the easier opponent, you would say. So I was surprised with that, but yeah, I mean that's a big chance, but that just shows you that's why every game in Europe is too difficult because no matter if people say about Club Brugge and Zagreb are easier matches, every game in Europe's got very good players, and that's another great defender that they've got there as well. And Zagreb, and I'm sure teams will be looking out for him because he really saved them when they need someone to save them tonight.
Were you surprised at Zagreb's approach to the game? Like I said, they're at home. I know they've been struggling recently. The fact that they hadn't won in the last 5 games. Were you surprised by how kind of negative really they were, especially at home?
Yeah, I was, Graham, because I expected them to come out all guns blazing because of the next two fixtures against AC Milan and Arsenal. And I felt like this would be a game that they would throw everything at it, but they seemed a bit passive for a team in Europe. They didn't seem as if they were up for it as much, and they seemed like they were, as you said rightly, they seemed as if they were letting Celtic control the tempo of the game, and that's not something you really see in Europe. Usually, the home team kind of dominates, and then the away team's kind of on the back foot, taking the chances when they can see them. But I feel like it was a bit like a boxing match where two boxers were kind of feeling each other out. But no, fair play to Celtic for that because they really nullified the threat as well. And you've got to say that as much as Schmeichel didn't have much to do tonight, is I think the distribution from the back as well is really impressive, and it really gets Celtic on the front foot as well.
Yeah, so it did finish Dinamo Zagreb 0, Celtic 0. Like I say, after that result tonight and results other places tonight as well, it does leave Celtic on 19 points, but they're only 3 points off the top 8 with 2 games to go. But I mean, again, looking back at tonight, Reagan, did anyone stand out for you on that Celtic side? Anyone you thought was really good tonight?
Um, Not particularly. Probably trusting Carter Vickers. I thought they did. I thought what they did was they set the team up on a very good way. They set a really good base for the team to go and attack. But then, as Brendan Rodgers rightly pointed out, they just in the final third they kind of lacked that edge to really go and to go and maximise the potential of the match for Celtic. But I think overall that I think I would say trusted Carter Vickers. I know he got the Champions League man of the match, but I think it was a real solid performance for Celtic.
Yeah, I suppose the only disappointing thing was Alistair Johnston going off, like I said, at halftime for Ralston. But again, I mean, you look at Alistair Johnston, somebody else that I think is a really good player as well. Celtic are very fortunate in their right back position to have someone like Alistair Johnston. Again, you look through the rest of that side, and you know there wasn't really much in. I don't think there was an outstanding player on the park for either team, but I would probably agree. You know, I thought Trusty looked pretty solid. Carter Vickers, we know how good he is defensively, apart from that mistake against Bruges. Cash Schmeichel, that one save to make, but it was just a. I mean, I know what you're saying about like Celtic fans maybe not happy because I've seen it myself on X as well. There was a lot of Celtic fans saying, "Oh, you know, we should be doing better than that." But a point away from home in a Champions League, it's a valuable point, I think, which is what I put in the tagline there. I think it's a valuable point, and you do have that game against young boys at home, which is a game that if I'm Celtic, I'm thinking, yeah, we can definitely take 3 points from this.
Yeah, it's a massive point. I know some people can be a bit reactive on their X and stuff, and really talk about the fact that like Celtic should be getting more, that they should be doing more in the final third and creating more chances. But I think sometimes can be a bit greedy. If you asked any Scottish football supporter or any Celtic supporter for that matter, would they take 9 points going into a final two matches? They'd snapped your hand off. And that's a great position to be in. And the good thing for Celtic as well is they've built that really trust in themselves in Europe that, as you said earlier, that Dortmund debacle is really not haunted them. That could have really spooked Celtic because as we've seen with Scottish teams, I mean, we've seen it with Motherwell a few years ago, Hearts, Rangers, Celtic. Scottish teams don't travel too well, Graham, and I'm glad to see Celtic have got a real backbone that they can really trust, and the players are really buying into what Brendan Rodgers is doing, and obviously people started to question Brendan Rodgers about is he being too open in Europe, but maybe Brendan Rodgers has adapted as well, and, and maybe he's actually st- like show the players, look, this is what we can do in Europe, but we can also try and play, but we can also be mindful that we need to close the back door as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that mentioned before about Rodgers, and I've heard that actually mentioned as well about Postecoglou, the fact that they're very stubborn. They won't change the way they play. But if you actually look after that giving us Dortmund, I actually think Rodgers has tweaked things a little bit. He's not being as open. And like you said, 2 clean sheets now against Atalanta and again tonight. Obviously, Celtic get the clean sheet against Hibs as well at the weekend. They are far more solid defensively. And if you've got a really good backline, then picking up points away from home can be huge in this. I mean, where do you think that leaves Celtic in terms of the Champions League? I think personally, like I've said previously, I think Celtic will beat Young Boys at home, and that probably will get at least a playoff place. Celtic were going to be playing Europe after Christmas anyway because the Aston Villa game. But where do you think this now leaves Celtic in terms of the Champions League?
I think they'll beat the Young Boys of Bern, and then they'll go down to Birmingham for a party against Aston Villa. Because Graham, I think that Aston Villa game as well, of course it'll be significant, but the good thing as well is, I don't know if you noticed, but Aston Villa beat RB Leipzig as well. So they're going to be through as well. So that's also an added bonus for Celtic as well, that Aston Villa have really picked up their form in the Champions League as well. So I feel like Celtic are in the best position they could be in. You know, it's okay. Like, I know you can be a little bit greedy and go, you could possibly have more, but like, I think if you're being honest with yourself, I think Celtic are in the best possible position they could be in. They've beat an RB Leipzig team that they've drawn with Bruges, who are a very competent European side, I would call them. I mean, Bruges beat Aston Villa and Sporting Lisbon, and they are very good teams. I mean, Aston Villa beat Bayern Munich, and also Sporting Lisbon beat Man City by 4 goals to 1. So you need to bear these things in mind. I know people can be reactionary on their eggs, and they can let's say Celtic should have got more, but there needs to be a perspective on things and really analyse it right. I think Brendan Rodgers and the players have done a fantastic job so far, and hopefully they're going to continue at that against the young boys of Bern in 2025.
Aston Villa are third in the league table. Liverpool are top after another win tonight against Girona. It wasn't a great performance for Liverpool, but they got through again. Mo Salah's penalty. Majowski, the ex-Aberdeen man, didn't start for Girona tonight. But, I mean, you look at that league table, I think you're still above Real Madrid, who obviously did get a win tonight in the end. But, I mean, Liverpool right now are looking pretty strong. Reagan, I know we're a Scottish football show, but I like to talk about a few other things as well. But I mean, I listened to Arne Slot's interview after the Liverpool game today, and he wasn't happy. He's got high standards. He wants better performances than that. Liverpool right now, if you're looking at a team that could win the Champions League, now it might not happen, but they could win it. Liverpool have started very strong this season. They've only had one defeat all season against Nottingham Forest. They're maybe not playing brilliantly, but they're winning games.
Yeah, I mean, the slot machine rolls on, Graham, and I think to bring it back to a Scottish perspective, I mean, if I want to go there, but Andy Robertson gets man of the match as well, and he's somebody that I watched a bit in the Liverpool game as well, and he made a tackle at one point where the Spanish team Girona were getting in behind, and he really stepped in there and really managed to stop them from attacking. And I think Liverpool are really benefiting from a new manager. I think sometimes you can get into the stage where if you hear the same voice for a long time, then it can really damage it. And I think that's what we're possibly seeing this season with Pep Guardiola. Don't know if you agree, but I think that's I think the fact Liverpool have got a fresh voice and they've got someone new in there that's benefited the whole squad. And I'm just intrigued to know if on the slot, I'm sure they've got scouts at Liverpool, and I'm sure they're telling them that they've got a young Scottish boy called Ben Doak that is a very good player. And hopefully next season, Graham, he's on the wing for you next season.
He's been outstanding for Middlesbrough. Honestly, he's been brilliant, and it doesn't surprise me because he's such a good player. And he's going to be up for Scotland as well, hopefully. Which actually brings me nicely to Friday. We'll be doing the show on Friday, 5 till 7. And as I said previously, on Friday morning, it is a draw for the World Cup qualifiers. We'll find out who Scotland are going to play. Hopefully, Ben Doak will be fully fit and fresh for all these games next year. But yeah, looking forward to that. But going back to Celtic tonight, I mean, obviously, it's a decent result for Celtic in Europe. And now, Reagan, Celtic fly back for a big, big game on Sunday, the League Cup final against Rangers. I know we'll do the preview show on Friday, but I mean, it's a massive, massive game for Celtic. They are clear favourites. How are you feeling going into that one?
Yeah, Graham, I'm not feeling nervous at the moment. I'm sure I will be when I'm there. But yeah, it's a massive game for Scottish football. It's a showpiece event, and I'm sure Alistair will be on Friday and he'll be hoping there's no pyro there as well. And a big talking point again tonight, Graham. I don't know if you noticed, but Joe Hart mentioned it
Let's
on the
hear that.
commentary. So I'd like to get Alistair's thoughts on it because he did mention the fact that it, it was involved in the Zagreb end and it's not good for football. And I just hope whoever was affected tonight, then hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, going on to Celtic, I mean, I think it also makes a big difference because I don't know if you agree that Celtic have got that 2 days rest as well. The fact that the players could go in tomorrow with a fresh mind, and because I think the fact that they can rest up, they can recover, and they can get in that mindset, and it's something that I spoke about last night on the Scottish Football Forums podcast. You can go and check it out. I know you've been on there before, Graham, but um, I mean, Celtic as well, Graham. There's so many players in that team that have won so many trophies, and that can only benefit the squad as well. And I think it will, Graham. I think it'll get the squad over the line. You know, look at Callum McGregor. Look at James Forrest. If James Forrest wins the League Cup, he's going to be so close to making history of being the Celtic player with the most trophy honours. So that shows you the amount of trophies that he's won. And if you go over to the other end, James Tavernier's only won 3 trophies in his full time at Rangers. He's won the League Cup, the Scottish Cup, and one title. So you would you would fancy Celtic to get over the line in that big moment. But as I said, the fact that Rangers have got 2 new strikers in Danilo and Igamani back, that's something that really throws a little spanner in the works as well, Graham, because the Rangers will be hoping that these 2 guys go into it fresh and go into it with a brand new energy. But to caveat that as well, you would also mention that the fact that Igamani and Danilo, that is probably their biggest game in their time as professional players. So how are they going to handle it? So it's got all the makings of a classic, and yeah, I mean, probably the best final in Scottish football history was, well, from a general standpoint, was the Peter Lovengrant's extra time 3-2. So I think I give it that nature, and everybody's happy. Then I'm sure um, it's going to be a cracker.
I mean, just on the back of tonight, can you see Brendan Rodgers making many changes to that starting lineup for Sunday? Or do you think he'll keep it pretty much the same?
I think he'll keep it the exact same, Graham. I think the only one that I was possibly thinking was when he bring in Engels for Bernardo, but I think he'll go with the tried and tested and Bernardo, and I think he'll go with Trusty instead of Scales because Trusty's built up that trust with Brendan. He's built up that faith that he can really throw him into these occasions and he can handle it. And the fact that he's got that partnership now he's building up with Vickers as well, I think that's something that Brendan Rodgers likes. That is that clarity of thought and the clarity of mind with his back four. And I think as well, Graham, you need to remember that he's got a shot stopper in Schmeichel that's been there and done it. He's won probably the greatest title in English football. He's won the Premier League with the greatest story of all time, and Leicester won the title under Claudio Ranieri, dilly ding, dilly dong, and all that sort of stuff. So he's been there and done it. He's worn that top. So I think overall Celtic under a great place. But I'm just intrigued to see what the permutations are because there's so many permutations for both teams. Because Brendan Rodgers has not lost a Celtic Rangers match. You've got Philippe Clement who's under pressure. So it's got all the makings of a brilliant mix of a great recipe for Sunday, and I'm looking forward to being there, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I heard on the Scottish Football Forums podcast. I don't know if it was yourself or if it was Steve-O that was on, who said that there maybe might be a case for Ida to come in for this final. I still believe that he'll start Kyogo because he just scores in these games. I mean, Ida scored obviously in the Scottish Cup final, but Kyogo just seems to know how to score in these games.
Yeah, I think it was a point that Josh made last night. I know Josh is a friend in the locker room, and he talks really well in Rangers, and he said that Kyogo's got a kind of lack of scoring against Rangers, and that's something that will play in Brendan Rodgers' mind because somebody that Brendan Rodgers had in the past, and Dembele and Lee Griffiths, they were two guys that really found the net against Rangers. So I think Brendan Rodgers will go for the tried and tested. They'll go for the know-how, but also, like you said, with Adamida, he's a great ace of the pack that you can throw on if you're struggling in a game.
Well, we've got just about 10 minutes left. We've obviously done the Dinamo I can't even speak. Dinamo Zagreb, Celtic 0. Dinamo Zagreb 0, Celtic 0 result tonight. We've talked about the game. But with the last 10 minutes to go, let's build up to Thursday because there's two big games for the other two Scottish sides in Europe. Hearts take on Copenhagen in the Conference League at 5:45, and then Rangers take on Tottenham at 8 o'clock. Let's start with the Rangers-Tottenham game because I can focus on Hearts last. I mean, you spoke about Celtic, obviously, for Sunday, Reagan. I mean, this is two massive games for Philip Clement. They are on the back of two decent results. The 6-0 win against Kilmarnock, followed up with a 3-0 win yesterday on Sunday against Ross County. You spoke about Danilo and Igamani, rightly so. They've been very good. But going into a game against Tottenham, who are looking a little bit shaky, obviously just beaten 4-3 by Chelsea at the weekend. How do you see this game going? How much pressure is on Rangers here?
I think it's going to be a pressure cooker, Graham. It's going to be a pressure cooker because Ibrox is going to be a volatile place for one of two ways. It's going to be volatile for Ange Postecoglou, or it's going to be volatile for the Rangers supporters. So it's going to be a real pressure cooker, that match. The way I see it going is, I think we'll begin to know with the partner play, but I see Spurs really dominating the match and putting their foot to the floor. It just really depends how Philip goes. I think the real weak point for me would be Tavernier. If I'm Ange Postecoglou, I'm targeting Tavernier and John Souttar because as much as I like Tavernier, he's great going forward, but he's defensively. Ange Postecoglou will know that from his time at Celtic that he's not very good defensively. And the thing with John Suter, Graham, you know, I mean, you'll probably say for your days, he's great with balls in the air, but the way that Ange plays with his fast tempo, but one of the things about John Suter is he's quite slow to react to things. He lacks a little bit of concentration. And I think that's something that Spurs can really exploit. But in terms of Rangers, I don't know if you agree again, but I was thinking about it last night when I was talking to the guys on the show, and I was saying about the miss of Hadji and Danilo on Thursday, and I think that's massive for Rangers because I think Hadji, you know, I never kind of understood why he was not in the squad in the first place. But it was obviously down to a contract issue in terms of Rangers didn't want to pay the money or whatever. But now the stuff is sorted by the club. So I think in terms of that, I think it'll be two big misses. But I think Rangers will just go there and try and relish the challenge. But as Josh said last night, I don't think it was great from the Rangers manager saying that talking about budgets and stuff like that. I don't think it's a great soundbite to put out before two big massive matches.
Yeah, and as Josh rightly said, you might think it, but don't say it because that just infuriates fans when you say things like that. And I think in terms of Tottenham as well, you know, Postecoglou back in Glasgow, and as kind of Michael said there, he will want to put on a show for the Tottenham fans because they have struggled recently. After that defeat on Sunday, and then after the game against Bournemouth as well, you had Tottenham fans not happy. Postecoglou want to go back to Glasgow and put on a show here.
Yeah, I think he will, Graham, and I think as well that he'll know the Rangers fans will be right up for it because they'll want to make sure they beat him and they'll be full of confidence before Sunday. But I think also this could work two ways for Rangers. You know, they could go into it on a real high, but also they could go into it with with letting in 4 or 5 goals, and that could really downplay Sunday. So I'm looking forward to see what recipe we go in to Sunday on because Celtic go in there with a good frame of mind, getting a good point in Champions League. So I'm now looking forward to seeing what Rangers go into. Do Rangers go into it with a value performance, or will they go in with it with a 4 or 5 with 4 or 5 goals in? It'll be interesting to see what we're talking about when it comes to Rangers and Spurs on Thursday night, Graham.
Yeah, and I mean, also if you look at it, I mean, Rangers are still in a decent position. You know, they've got 10 points. I think, like Celtic, again, they'll get through. But if you actually look at the game after this as well, they've got Man United as well still to come in this. Again, United have not been overly impressive. Amarin's come in. I still think they look very vulnerable. I mean, is that a game that Rangers can be looking at and thinking we can maybe take points there? Because Man United do look quite vulnerable.
I think the thing with Man United as well, Graham, is they've got so many luxury players. And I think that is more of a game that I would say that Rangers might have a chance than the Spurs game because I just feel Spurs are kind of like the Ange ball can suffocate you more. But because Ange is under pressure, I do get your point that possibly this could be a battle because Ange is under pressure and stuff. But I think the Man United game is a game that Rangers can really attack as well.
We'll hopefully be joined on Thursday after the game by our Rangers fan, Andy, who's from Northern Ireland. He will hopefully be joining us on the show, which would be good to have him on. He's not been on for a while. He's a familiar face to the show. I'm sure you'll notice him when he comes on. But the other game on Thursday is Hearts away in Copenhagen. Now, Copenhagen currently sit top of their league in Denmark. They have 12 games unbeaten. I'm giving myself the fear just thinking about this. They've got an ex-Celtic player, El Eunice, in their side. Hearts go there on the back of that win against Dundee at the weekend. Lauren Shankland getting a couple of goals. Reagan, this is a game that I am filled with fear because Copenhagen are actually the top seeds in our group. They're a very, very good side. It's going to be a very, very difficult game for Hearts. I'm under no illusion how hard this is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard, Graham, but I think that it's a game that you can enjoy because I think, as you rightly pointed out on Friday, I think that Hearts will be judged this game. They'll be judged again the game against Petrofac. And that'll be the game that they'll be judged upon. So I think this is a game that they'll go in there and they'll try their best, but they'll be under no illusions it'll be a very tough test because I think Copenhagen beat Man United a couple of years ago. So this is a team that Hearts. I think they'll try and grow into the game. They'll try and get throw-ins and free kicks. But I think overall, I don't think Neil Chrisley will be kind of overly judged on this match. But from reading between the lines, what you've been messaging me and telling me on the locker room, you've been impressed with what you've seen for Neil Chrisley so far, eh?
Yeah, my performance has been a lot better. Under Naismith, I couldn't really see an identity. I see that under Neil Critchley. It's funny because Blackpool fans, when he came to Hearts, Blackpool fans said, "Oh, he's very rigid. He'll play 3-5-2." He's never played it once. He's stuck to the four at the back, which I like. Performances have definitely improved. There's been a lot of games I think we've been a bit unlucky, but the last few games I think we played quite well. And the fact that Shanklin is now back and scoring is a massive, massive boost. We also, hopefully, actually, one thing I would say as well, on Saturday against Dundee, I think when he's fit, Craig Halkett's our best centre-back. He's composing the ball. He's really strong and really solid. I think Halkett on Saturday was really good, and I think he'll be really important again on Thursday. And as well, the right back that was in the start of the season, Gerald Taylor, he's back running, so he'll hopefully be back soon as well. So yeah, there's a lot of positives, but I think this game on Thursday is going to be really, really difficult.
I think Craig's a player as well, Graham. That you need to remember that, but see, before he got injured, he was a player that Steve Clark called into the Scotland squad. So he's a player that can really be relied upon. And I think in terms of Hearts, I'll just be glad to get as many faces back because, and you spoke there about Gerard Taylor. I mean, that's somebody that at the start of the season, Hearts people like Michael Stewart and that we're talking about this guy being a very good player. And I know you were speaking about him after the Rangers match when they drew enough an each. And I was saying that he looked a very decent player. So I think the more players that Hearts get back in the squad, then it'll be better for the club because they need as many good players as they can. I don't think Hearts will be anywhere near relegation. I think if you're looking at an Edinburgh club, sorry, Mikey and the Hibs fans, but I think if there's an Edinburgh club going to be relegated, it'll be the Greenside Edinburgh.
Someone that I think will be very important on Thursday is Craig Gordon, and it came out yesterday that Hearts are looking to offer new contracts to both Craig Gordon and Xander Clark. Now, I like them both. I think Clark's been a bit unlucky, the fact that he got injured and Craig Gordon came back in. But I generally think, Reagan, that we are very fortunate to have two very good goalkeepers. And the fact that Craig Gordon is 42 now, he's showing no signs of stopping anytime soon. If we offer both of them new contracts, I'm more than happy with that because they're two very good goalkeepers.
See, that's the thing I always find strange, again, right? Because remember, like May June time after the Finland game, people were like saying that like Craig Gordon was finished and Xander Clark's playing for Hearts. But it just shows you how fickle and how quick football can change. Remember, everybody was putting banners up and saying thank you to Craig Gordon, and that was his final goodbye. But I mean, I never for once thought Craig Gordon was finished at Hearts or finished at Scotland, and it just shows you how quick football opinions and football terminology can change because age is only a number, Graham. You know, Craig Gordon's a fantastic goalkeeper, and it still amazes me how we never took him to the Euros. I know people were saying, well, he's not playing, but now he's proven that he's the number one choice.
Yeah, Michael says Xander needs to be kept. I think Neil Critchley was determined to hold on to him. Craig Gordon may only have a season left in him. That's a fair point. You know, it might be that maybe Gordon's offered a 1-year deal, and maybe then after that, maybe goes into the coaching role. I still think in some way Craig Gordon will have a job at Hearts for only once one because he's.
And also, Graham, you need to remember that as you have spoken about before, you need to remember that Craig Gordon, when he was at Sunderland years ago, he got a massive injury, so he's making up for lost time. Like he might be 42 now, but he also had 2 years on the sidelines and I know he had a trial at Rangers for friends of the Rangers at the time, and he had a trial at Rangers, and then Celtic took him on board, and then he never looked back there for Ronnie Dylan. Took him on board, and I think I know people might say 42, right? But you remember that he's also had 2 years out of the game, so he might still feel as if he's fresh and he's still got plenty to offer Hearts and offer Scotland. Because I, I don't know if you agree, Graham, but you spoke about Scotland about 10 minutes ago. We've got big qualifiers for these World Cups come up, and I don't know about you, but I would rather play Craig Gordon than Angus or Sander Clark.
No, so what I said this weeks ago, I think right now Craig Gordon's back as Scotland's number one. Whether Steve Clark agrees with that, I don't know, but I think that's what everyone's probably thinking now. But anyway, our time is up. Thank you to everyone that's watched. Thank you to all the comments. Thank you, as always, to Reagan. Finished Dinamo Zagreb 0, Celtic 0. We are back on Thursday. We'll be back. I don't know if we're doing a show before it, but we certainly will be on after it. We'll be on it to cover Hearts against
I agree.
Copenhagen.
I'll be on it. I'll be on it 4:45 for build up if the Hearts game's Hearts playing at 4:45.
Yeah.
I'll be on it 4:45.
Excellent. So you can join us then on Thursday, and also we're back at 10 o'clock. And then we're back on Friday as well for our preview show. And we will look at Scotland's World Cup qualifying draw. It's a busy, busy time coming up just before Christmas. Thank you, as always, to everybody. Have a really good end of the week. And we shall see you all again on Thursday. See you later, folks.